any kind of stress. So broadly, ये सारे categories थे, and then I sort of started preparing under each bucket, and that was how my journey looked like.
Great. So let's talk about each bucket as you mentioned. So when you talk about personal questions, that questions about yourself. So what kind of questions were you asked in your interviews last year from Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, Kozhikode, or Indore?
Right. So a common myth is every interview will start with a tell me about yourself. But in my case, no interview had that element. So they can randomly pick up any part of what you have done in your life. So in terms of my thing, there was definitely the why MBA question every time. Given that I had a great academic profile and I was doing some good work in terms of my work, where I was working in sustainable energy and it seemed to be very impactful. A common question was why even leave that kind of a role? You're doing very well here. What do you think you'll get out of an MBA? So that was definitely one question. And then about my upbringing, whether how my parents had helped me become what I am today. That was definitely a part of it. And other such questions, ki, what are your goals in life? Where do you see yourself in, let's say, 10 years, 15 years? What do you want to get out of this MBA? So those kind of questions were definitely a part.
Understood. Okay. So next let's jump on to the academic side of it. So you had a 999 profile, you had an IR, you had an IR one at a bit. Okay, so what kind of questions were you asked? Were you asked questions regarding your, subjects at in the UG?
Right. So because my academic profile was a bit on the better side in terms of the overall 999 thing, so they overlooked my undergrad part of it for the most of the interviews. But in terms of maths and science that comes into school level, there were definitely basic questions. Like I remember one question from Lucknow, which was like a stressful question: ki, there's a water of bottle in the room, there's a hot water bottle, and there's a cold water bottle. What's the
Okay.
difference between the two? So while it might seem this is very intuitive and basic answer, but the interviewers were just not happy with whatever I was saying. They wanted a philosophical sort of an answer. So definitely, as a basic question, they will definitely pick up in the interview, like simple things like electricity or just addition, integration, whatever, and they'll try to throw you off by whatever means possible. So you need to stay in guard for that, for any such kind of a question.
Understood. Okay. Now we have covered your questions based on yourself, then your academics. So what kind of questions were you asked based on your work experience?
Right. So to talk about my interviews, I would say at least if let's say an interview is 30 minutes, at least 15 minutes went into my work ex every time. So once I started describing about the nature of work I was doing, so I was working around hydrogen as a fuel, and that
Hmm.
seemed to be a very relevant topic given in today's circumstances of sustainable energy and climate change. So they were naturally very interested in it. Ki what exactly is the technology you're working on? How is it important for your organization? What is your organization doing? So those kind of questions are very important in any IIM's context. They will want to know what you have done in your work, what impact has it had in your organization, how has your organization been doing over time. So it's important to read up your annual reports, your financial statements of your company, ki, what are the highlights, what new products is it launching, then understanding how your competition looks like. So for ExxonMobil as an energy company, Shell or British Petroleum is the natural competitor. So they would want to know what your competitor is doing and how is your company dealing with it. And finally, how your industry is doing at large. Ki energy business mein kya chal raha hai? What are the trends looking like? Let's say 10 years later, what will the scene in energy look like? So they'll be very happy if you're aware of all these topics. So to gain awareness of these topics, I'm pretty sure there are articles out there which talk about your particular industry. It could be steel, it could be IT, whatever it is. So you'll have to prepare for that. So my takeaways focus a lot on your work, capsulate whatever you have done in your period, and then focus on what your organization is doing through articles or whatever means possible.
Cool. And were you asked anything regarding your extracurricular achievements?
In terms of extracurriculars, definitely a focus was on PORs. So I had the opportunity to be a joint secretary and a vice president of two clubs in at BITS. So questions about how I led the organization, what are the unique things that I did in my tenure, and reflecting on my journey so far, is there something I would have redone or would have liked to revisit under those situations, and any challenges I faced? I think that was definitely a part. I think in Indore that question was asked. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about now. Gaurav, why don't you tell us about the interview experiences? What kind of questions were asked? Starting from the toughest one, you were talking about Lucknow being a stress interview. So start with Lucknow because I think Lucknow has already started their interviews this time, so it might be also helpful to our for our viewers also.
Right. So IIM Lucknow is notorious for like giving out stress tests in most of their interviews. It's always a pressure cooker situation most times. So in my particular case, the interviewer was not at all happy with what I was saying. Every time I answered, he made a frowning face. He was just not willing to listen to my answer, and he did not seem convinced at anything I said. So it started by talking about my work experience, where I started with hydrogen as a fuel and what I was doing in the company. He was like, this is an unfeasible solution. You're doing nonsense in your company. I don't know why you're wasting your time. So those kind of questions are natural in these kind of scenarios. They're trying to throw you off your feet. They want to check if you're able to regain your confidence, and you should not get flustered in those situations. Then there were a lot of guesstimate sort of questions. Very randomly was like, in this hotel room, try to find out the volume, try to find the unoccupied volume of this hotel room. So naturally, abhi work ke bare mein you're discussing, and then suddenly it shifts to this guesstimate sort of a scenario which you're not expecting. So in an interview, you also have to be prepared for this, that suddenly the line of questioning can change. Pehle something can be covered, then suddenly it will shift. Then I remember for the person just before me, there was a very weird question ki, what does critical thinking mean? And then the next question was, there's a flower pot in the room, critically analyze this flower pot. So there'll be very weird questions, especially in IIM Lucknow, that you have to be careful about. What's more important is just be confident in what you're answering. I would recommend having a smile. Don't slouch or any such sort of an attitude where it shows that you're sort of off your feet. That is one advice I'd give, at least for IIM Lucknow. Ki stress test me, you need to stay calm.
Okay. And what is the duration of a, what was your interview duration at Lucknow?
I think 25 to 30 minutes roughly. And that's probably the longest interview I've given.
Okay. And बाकी campuses में क्या timing होता है average में?
So I think the shortest was Kozhikode, which wrapped up around 15 minutes, but generally around the 20-25 minute mark. Only I think Lucknow exceeded 30.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay, let's go on to talk about the other campus interviews, maybe Kozhikode or Indore, whichever you're in.
Right. So Kozhikode, as I explained, was the shortest interview, and
Yes.
it was probably the smoothest interview I'd given so far, where everything went extra smooth. It's like they just started about my work experience, what you had done. They were very happy to hear about the kind of work I was doing. A few questions on current affairs, ki how's the budget looking? What are your thoughts on it? And all that. And like, why do you want to join IIM Kozhikode in particular? So yeah, this is one more point, that whatever institute you're joining, you should try to research about it. So let's say Kozhikode or Ahmedabad, like why would you want to join IIM Kozhikode? Find an answer for yourself, and don't have a generic thinking. It's a prestigious institution, so I want to join it. Try to find something unique about every institution. You'll definitely find it. Scan the website, find a company which just goes to this particular campus, or any such thing will definitely help out. So
Correct. So
broadly, Kozhikode,
just a
yeah.
thing, a lot of our students this time they're just writing three things are always common: prestigious institute, faculty members, diverse peer set. I mean, people should go beyond that and also do some research about the institute. For example, if they're interested in consulting, like you have joined the consulting club, they can also talk about being a part of the consulting club or anything like that, right? Yeah. Sorry,
Totally.
carry on.
And just to talk about the other point of view, like professors here tell us that they're absolutely fed up of the answers candidates give in the exam. So for IIM Ahmedabad, everybody ends up saying case-based pedagogy, and they're tired of hearing that. They know ki case-based pedagogy is, so you don't have to repeat that to them. Could be a part of your answer, but you need to find something unique as to why you fit into that institution. So do some research. I'm pretty sure you'll come up with something that you personally like about an institute, and you'll be able to back it up. And it's also important to be honest at sometimes, like, let's say you're interviewing for Shillong or any such institute, and your goal is Ahmedabad. You have a call from it. So you need to be honest. Ki you shouldn't say ki Shillong is the best institute or something. You need to be honest about it. Even they understand it. So honesty is something I would advocate for as well.
Cool. Okay. And Kozhikode ke baad, what was the other interview that you had? Calcutta.
Right. So next was Calcutta, and this I would describe as the most quirky one. So let's divide it into three halves.
Okay.
So the first one third of it was more of an introduction, why MBA, about my work ex vagera. That was like the standard part of any interview that happens. Then the second part was a 10-minute long conversation on just about tennis. So they asked me, ki, what do I do in my free time? I mentioned tennis, and I played for my college as well. And they were like, Acha, now let's just talk about tennis. And they wanted to understand if I'm a proper player or not, or I'm just faking it. So they started asking ki top spin kaise hota hai? How is it different from side spin? What is a volley? Kya hota hai? And what is a clay court? What is a grass court? How is it different from each other? Ball agar pitch hoga to kaise hoga? So the in and out of tennis they were focusing on, just to make sure ki I'm just not throwing it in the air ki I've played tennis. And then the next part of it, I think the last one half, they were like, focus on current affairs. Tell me what is the latest news you know about. And on that particular day, Silicon Valley Bank had collapsed.
Huh.
So I just happened to mention it, but the next 10 minutes just revolved around that, where they were like, okay, why did it collapse? If it collapsed, what is the implication on the overall scenario? What is a bank run? And I just took a guess then, but it turned out to be correct. And like it was just about Silicon Valley Bank, and I did not anticipate ki itna lamba chalega, but it was a long drawn out conversation on just SVB. So yeah, that was just my IIM Calcutta interview.
Okay. So pro tip for everyone, if you're mentioning hobbies as anything, maybe Gaurav mentioned tennis, for mentioning cricket, football, ensure that you know in and out about the sport or whatever that your hobby is, right? Uh, I think we are receiving a lot of questions around CAT preparation. So, folks, this is not the session for that. We can have another session around April when we start off with our CAT sessions. We'll definitely take up your questions. And someone posted a question around that I have an average profile 7.7 and I'm currently pursuing BCom. Can I get a call from the old IIMs if I score well in CAT, general category, male? Gaurav, any take on that?
So 7-7 is the 10th, 12th, is what you're
10th,
saying?
12th, currently pursuing BCom.
Right. So in that kind of a scenario, you would need a very good percentile. I would say at least 99.9K upwards because of the past 10th, 12th ka record. It does have an impact. But yes, it is definitely possible. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but you need a good CAT percentile. And I think BCom, you get the academic diversity points as well. So that will definitely help out. But it's not impossible, but it'll be a bit tough, is what I would say.
लास्ट आपके दो बाकी रहते इंदौर के इंटरव्यू एक्सपीरियंस एंड देन अहमदाबाद.
Right. So Indore, I remember, had this unique thing of extempore, where other colleges have WAT or AWT. Indore was extempore, and my topic I remember was about connecting rivers across India. So again, a very random topic, and I was like, I had no idea about it. But it's just important to just take a few seconds, just note down your thoughts, whatever it could be. So I was like, why would you want to connect rivers within India? Like there could be a part of India which is deserted, जहाँ पे पानी नहीं है, and there could be a part which has abundance of water. So that could be the purpose of it. So just a story starts to flow from there, and then you start building on it. This is the same. You just treat an extempore as a what itself. Note down your thoughts, then just articulate them in front of the interviewer. And the rest of the indoor interview was more like Code itself, where it was about why I would want to do an MBA or how my work ex was and those kind of questions. So indoor again was a short interview. I would say 15-20 minutes. Then moving on to Ahmedabad. So Ahmedabad was probably the most interesting interview again. Around let's say 25 minutes it ran. So the first half of it was mainly about my work ex, where they again were very interested with what I was doing about hydrogen and sustainable energy. And a long conversation followed, which was about how solar energy would look like in India, whether it's feasible. India needs to move towards renewable energy. Is it possible or not? What are your thoughts on it? So they will definitely have questions like this where they'll ask the, what do you think about this? Tumhara kya opinion hai personally? So that went on till about 12-13 minutes, I'd say. And then the next part, they were like, acha, about energy kuch zyada hi ho gaya. Now let's move on to something random. So they're like, you know about how the education system works like in India. I want you to critically analyze it. What do you think is the shortcoming here? What is the a good thing here? And if you had the power to change it, how would you go about changing it? So the next 10 minutes was a discussion on it where I pointed out some flaws in the, let's say, the primary education part of it. Then I talked about how the new NEP policy had come around and how that was working. So that was the next, let's say, half of it. And at the end, when the interview is about to conclude, a very tricky question came where I was just about to leave. The interviewer like, "Acha, baith jao. I have one last question for you. So let's assume that hypothetically I'm offering you admission right now, but I say that I want you to defer by 1 year because I want you to work. I feel that the line you're working in is very good, and I want you to work for 1 more year. In this case, what are you going to do?" Early on in the interview, I'd already mentioned that I would like to join an MBA immediately. So now this was a very tricky spot. Should I change my answer or should I retain my original answer? At this point, I was like, I'll continue with what I had said. I backed it with the proper, let's say, line of defense as well. But she was not happy. She was extremely disappointed. She was like, this is the problem with today's generation. They don't focus on anything. They just want to move from here to there. And I was completely down. But later on, I realized that all IIMs will have these double-edged swords where they'll ask you a question, and no matter what you answer, they will want you to tell the opposite. It's important that you maintain your defense under whatever scenario. Don't change your answer if you've said something. Have proper reasoning to back it up, and trust me, it will go well.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Gaurav, before we go ahead, so we have few questions that we have received. Okay. Bhaiya, please tell us about the dress code for interviews.
It's like proper formal wear. For men, it is a proper suit, a shirt, a tie, pants, and leather shoes. For girls, I think the tie is not necessary. It's like optional, maybe. But I think the blazer is a good practice. I'm not sure if it's compulsory for women or not, but at least for men, the entire thing is compulsory. And it's good to be well groomed. Like don't have a beard. I wouldn't recommend that, although I have it now. But clean shave is something I would recommend. Like cut your hair properly, be presentable. You need to look the best. You need to be presentable in front of the panel. You're essentially selling yourself for a seat at their particular institute. So be as presentable as possible.
जैसे 12th फेल में था ना आईपीएस कट की आईएएस कट.
हाँ वही recommend करूंगा मैं.
So another question, I have got cap calls. Apart from the VAT-PI kit from IIM Cap, what else do I need to prepare?
So CAP के लिए I'm very sorry. I wouldn't have knowledge because I hadn't applied for CAP. So yeah, I would suggest that you like look for some other place for an answer because CAP I honestly don't have knowledge.
Okay, so whoever asked this question, you can reach out to us on email. We'll be happy to answer the question. Okay, or it's a YouTube question. I'll reply to that. We'll reply to that in some time. Same another
Yeah.
question, sir. How can I prepare for my CAP interviews? We'll answer this. We'll answer this on the YouTube channel. Don't worry. Okay. Someone is asking, my profile is 877 SC category engineering, 8 months work experience. What percentile is needed to enter ABC? Do you want to take a dab at that?
Okay, so it's an ST profile. So within 877, I think something upwards of 98 percentile, I think is maybe it's a good shot. But because of the academic thing, maybe around 99 would be something that should guarantee it. So yeah, somewhere in the range of 98 to 99, I think it should help in getting a spot. I mean, a call.
Okay. Okay. Another question is, will they only focus on full-time jobs? Won't they talk about internship? So
So it depends. For freshers, you don't have WorkX, so they will naturally ask you about internships. For me, because I had WorkX and it was interesting to them, so they focused on that. But if you don't have, or maybe your internship is more like impactful in terms of your overall profile, they'll focus on that. They would want to understand what was your project, how did you execute it, whether you got a PPO at the end might be a question, as they're aware about it. And yeah, similar lines of questioning where they'll want you to be aware about your organization, like what impact did your project have on the overall organization's goals. Those kind of things will definitely be asked.
someone is posting, please talk about the sustainable management from IIM Mumbai. I think you can check that online from their website. You didn't apply for NITI last year, right?
No, I didn't
No,
apply.
okay, then okay, that's fine. Okay. Before we go on, folks, Gaurav is an alumnus of Inside IIM's VAT-PI program. He was the first person who signed up for the third season of the Inside IIM MBA boot camp. I mean, मुझे तो पता भी नहीं था कि CAT results कब आने वाले. That's the first time they released it even before Christmas. I think 21st of December 2022.
Right.
I had no idea. We didn't even have a proper landing page, and I saw that एक payment आया है. मुझे तो कौन किया payment? And Gaurav had just joined the program 2 days before the CAT results had come out, I think. And then उसके बाद तो he kept on interacting. You joined the group, had the mentorship sessions, etc. So, folks, if you are interested in, if you're serious about converting your B school calls, and if you don't have a lot of time for your interviews, I highly recommend you to join Inside IIM's VAT-PI program. We're in the fourth season. The last 3 years, we worked with 241 students and we helped them to make it to their dream B schools, which include the likes of Blackie, FMS, Excel, SP, MDI, MICA, NMIMS. So the link is in the description. In case you're interested, do check it out. So Gaurav, would you like to talk about your experience as a part of the Inside IIM Bootcamp? I'm sorry I'm making it very pitchy kind of a thing, but just wanted to know your experience about the program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Inside IIM was probably the best decision I'd made, at least for my interview prep. So what I absolutely loved about it is how it was structured in terms of there was a whole content repository which I could refer to. The content repository, as far as I remember, had topics about like general awareness, like GK, current affairs about what's going on. It was constantly updated. So I did not even have to rely on a newspaper essay. I could, if I was just constantly following the drive, I would know about what's happening across the world, proper analysis on that. The next part of it was, I remember primers were there for different management domains. That was a very crucial part because it's important to know what you're getting into. So if you can just read up about what finance looks like, what consulting looks like, operations, marketing, that really helps you frame a mind key, like after an MBA, what I might want to do, as well as within an interview. If you try to question your motivation for an MBA, you have some backing. कि हाँ, marketing में I enjoy this, so I want to do this. Maybe I enjoy the advertising part of it or new product design. But I enjoyed that part of it. And then inside IIM offers this mentorship plus mock PI wala system, where you have a mentorship session with an expert who's either a current alumni or a current student, or sorry, an alumni, and who knows this entire process inside out. And they probably have the best perspective of how this entire system works. So it's very good to have such expertise or guidance from those kind of people, where they look at your profile, they have a deep dive at what you have done across your life, and they suggest the best tips for you, ki how you can prepare for your interview journey. And finally, the mock PIs, and I think the what PI mocks as well, where before every interview, you have a current student or an alumnus taking your interview. It's a 30-minute long interview where they try to simulate what would actually happen in a proper interview. It could be a stressful environment or any kind of an environment which they want to simulate. And they give you a lot of feedback that you can work on. So I feel this entire system works very well together, and it helped me at the end of it be very confident for every interview I was going for. And yeah, that's why inside I would recommend.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gaurav. Okay, one more question. I have read somewhere that sometimes IIM Lucknow panelists start conversations in Hindi. So should we continue in Hindi or not?
You should take the cue from your interviewer. If they've started in Hindi, I think that's a hint that they would want you to continue with Hindi. It would be a bit rude to just change the language. So unless you're uncomfortable with Hindi as a language, then maybe request politely that could we shift over to English. But if you're confident with Hindi, then yeah, why not? Just continue with the flow.
Okay, Gaurav, the last segment of the session. So over to you. Why don't you tell your juniors about how to prepare for the interviews, a detailed outline on what kind of resources they should refer to, how should they prepare, the
Right.
entirety of it.
Right. So what I would recommend is like before every interview, it's very important to have some sort of a checklist. Like as I mentioned earlier on, that within an interview, anything under the sun could be asked. So you need to be a bit structured and organized as to how you tackle with it. So how I went about it is I made a Google Doc before every interview. So let's say, for example, IIM Ahmedabad ka interview chal raha hai. I have 1 week for it to go. I would make a Google Doc checklist ki what are the things I need to do. So I have my checklist open. In fact, I'll just read out what all I had written, and you could also follow something similar for your preparation. So first thing is research about the university itself. So I had a bucket for that. Ki research about IIMA's website. What does it do? What are its unique offerings in terms of courses, faculty, etc., and what is unique about it? So that's one part of it where you just focus on the university and try to understand about it. Then the next part is for every management domain, it's good to have some knowledge of what exactly happens in each. For example, in finance, you have numbers such as net present value, internal rate of return, or let's say DCF. Then in economics, topics such as GDP, inflation, and operations, you have lean or Six Sigma. So all these topics, if you can get hold of a primer that essentially summarizes it in like 20, 30 pages or something of that sort, that's very helpful. Go through it before every interview so that you have a general awareness of what every management domain looks like. And if asked in an interview about what's your knowledge about this domain, you have something to back up. Then I think the next part is the what or the AWT prep. So at least for me, what I approached it through ChatGPT. This is something I would recommend for you as well. It's a very useful tool. So you can find these topics like current affair topics or any general topics online. So if you have a difficulty in generating ideas, at least at the onset stage, you can use any topic, just put it on ChatGPT, get good answers for it, and then try to build upon it. Soon a proper learning curve follows where whenever you're thrown a topic, you'll know how to approach it. And in general, for any what or AWD, a good practice is like you need to structure an answer well. So start with a good introduction, then start building up on it. Have concrete examples about what you are proposing. You need to eliminate whatever countermeasures are being, whatever the counter opinion is, and have a good conclusion. So that kind of structure will help. And I remember there's some sort of a GMAT book which you'll definitely find online that is good for AWT. So I'll briefly explain the difference between what and AWT as well, where what you'll just be thrown a random topic. It could be, let's say, G20 or let's say electric trains in India, and you'll have to write an essay on it. In AWT, it's very different, where you'll be given a hypothetical situation and you'll have to analyze, like, what is the assertion here? Does this assumption make sense? Is this assumption wrong? How will you counter this assumption? What extra information you will need? So you'll find a basic AWT example online, I'm pretty sure. So I think there's a GMAT book which you can refer to for it. Then the next part I would say is current affairs. So I would recommend that you subscribe to a newspaper. Let's say I did it through Economic Times. I would recommend any such newspaper, let's say Times of India or Economic Times. I chose Economic Times because it gives you a business perspective along with politics. So if you follow that daily, I'm pretty sure you'll be up to date with what's going on in the country and the world at large. And if they ask you any question about current affairs, you will be able to deal with it. Then there's a part about personal reflection. I think this takes a long time, so it's better you start as early as possible. You'll find a list of standard HRQs such as strengths and weaknesses, career goals, etc. online. Try to prepare answers for those. You can write it down and start practicing it. Maybe you don't have to remember everything, but you should know the cues. Let's say if they ask you, like, demonstrate an incident where you have shown your strength, you should have a concrete incident. Ki, ha, in this club I had shown this kind of an experience, or during work I had done so. That will definitely help. Then focus on revising on your undergrad knowledge as well as basic maths and science. So in terms of undergrad, irrespective of engineering, commerce, just go through your notes. You'll find gate notes online, for example, for engineering. And pretty sure similar handbooks will be there for every domain. And even for 10th, 12th, let's say basic math like integration, differentiation, and those kind of elements, just good to brush up on whatever's been taught for you. Maybe for a commerce student, it could be accountancy, which they'll have to revise a bit. That will help. Then, in terms of your work experience or internship experience that you've had, again, as I mentioned, be aware of every detail that you've done throughout your work. You might be asked to defend it. Then, about your company, just read up the annual reports, etc. Then I think our next part is probably static GK, which is they would be interested in checking whether you have knowledge about, like, basic general knowledge about whatever's going on around you. So I'm from Bangalore, so maybe a question about, like, what's the population of Bangalore, or like what's the who's the chief minister of Karnataka. Maybe those kind of questions will be there, and basic statistics about India also they might be interested in. And then finally, yeah, I think that broadly covers most of the categories. So if you can make such similar buckets and have a checklist for the same, and before every interview, let's say 5 days or 6 days before it, start ticking off everything that you have accomplished. That's a great strategy to have because you're comprehensive in that regard. You're not missing out on, there are no loose ends in your preparation. And yeah, definitely mock PIs will be a great part of your journey. So I would recommend enrolling in some kind of a coaching where you have someone you can practice mock PIs with. The feedback that you get is really helpful. And try to give at least one or two mock PIs before every interview. It will really build up your confidence and you'll be positive in your actual D day. And you won't have any nerves on you if you're able to do well in the mock PIs. And broadly, I think final pointer would be just stay calm. Like, don't take too much stress. Trust in your abilities. I'm pretty sure everything will go well if you just follow a strategic approach to dealing with things. So broadly, some 2 cents from my side.
Thank you, Gaurav. I think last couple of questions. Milind is asking any resource list for preparing for undergraduate engineering subjects. I think Milind, Gaurav just spoke about that. I think GATE study materials, right?
Yeah, yeah. At least for engineering, gate study material is good enough.
Okay. Apart from that, someone named S is asking in IIM Calcutta, math questions and graduation questions are asked. They check the graduation mark sheet so can they ask questions from different courses like economics, finance, and literature?
Yeah, definitely they'll be there. And especially if your marks are a bit on the lower end, that's when they try to grill you a bit more. That's a sad thing, but yeah, they definitely do that. If they see that you have not done well in a course, they'll definitely pick up that course. So I would say try to watch a YouTube video about the same or any kind of primer that you find online. Jape at least the basics you must know. They might not go into very complicated nitty gritties, but they will want to check ki, ha, you have some knowledge about this. So try to follow that for any kind of domain or any subject, irrespective. And yeah, definitely, IIM Calcutta is known as a quant-heavy college. So maths pe they will definitely focus. So especially if you're an engineer or you've had a maths background, they would want you to be aware of integration, let's say differentials, Laplace transforms, all those kind of complex mathematical operations. It is an expectation at IIM Calcutta, at least for people with a maths background.
Got it. Got it. I think we've taken all the questions and yes, no. Okay. Okay. Acha, Nagarjuna is asking Calcutta, Lucknow, which one is good?
Ah, no, that's a very subjective and it's a tricky question that I would not answer on this forum. But each college has their own merits and demerits. So you should probably do a lot of research on your own, understand like which domain you want to work in, maybe, or what kind of experience you want from a B school, and accordingly decide. So each college is very good in my opinion.
एकदम ही ये जेनेरिक आंसर आ गया, सॉरी डिप्लोमेटिक आंसर आ गया. So Dhruv is
Yeah.
asking for BCom resources. Dhruv will reply to this message after the live is over. I think Gaurav is an engineer, so I don't think he will be able to answer that. So let me put up a few resources as a reply to your question in some time. Yes. So I think that's it. We have answered all the questions, and you have given a very thorough listening of your preparation. So, I think any last parting advice before we close the session, Gaurav?
Right. I would just say trust in yourself. I mean, just follow whatever I've said, and you'll find a lot of advice from other people as well online. So just try to absorb whatever you see, look for what works best for you, and follow that. You'll hear a lot of things online. You need to trust what you feel works best for you. Don't follow every advice blindly, is what I would say. And finally, yeah, don't take too much stress also. Like one day before an interview, just chill out a bit, trust in the preparation you've made in the, let's say, the past months or weeks, and just try to keep yourself calm in a good space and just go kill that interview. That's my like final advice for all of you. Best of luck, everyone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Gaurav. Thanks a lot for doing this session.
Yeah, my whole pleasure. Yeah. Thank you, Deban.